Judgment can be a very sensitive subject. A lot of people talk about not having judgment and not judging others. But when you have a perspective on something, no matter what perspective you have on it, when you talk to other people, there's going to be a little bit of judgment. Now, the people who go through, myself included, who say that they hold a space for non judgment, what they're saying is that they're holding a space in order to allow you to get your perspective out there. They're holding a space for you to be able to see different perspectives on what's going on. Now, personally, whatever they feel on it, will have a little bit of effect on the way that they describe it or the way that they approach the subject. But when you start to show different perspectives, that's how you get rid of some of that judgment. You get rid of some of that energy where you don't necessarily agree. You don't have to agree on different ideas or different subjects. You have to have different perspectives on it. And it's not really that you have to, because you can do whatever you want. But when you have those different perspectives on what's actually going on, when you have those different perspectives on how to approach a certain subject or how to approach something that's happening, then you start to remove some of that judgment in what you're saying, because you're able to bring in those different perspectives. You're not coming at it just from your one perspective. A lot of times judgment is there because of one perspective. When you only have one perspective on something and you're not willing to accept, or even and not even accept, because you don't have to accept it, but acknowledge the different perspectives, that's when a judgmental attitude comes in. That's when a judgmental perspective or a judgmental mentality happens. Everybody has a different way of maneuvering through this system. Everybody has a different way of going through life. Everybody has a different way that they do things. And you have to understand that it's not always going to be the way you believe it to be. So when you are looking at what somebody's doing, or if you're trying to give advice on what somebody is doing, give them multiple perspectives. There's always going to be that initial perspective that you come up with that you feel is the right way of doing things. And that's with anybody. Anybody's going to have a certain perspective on what's going on. You have to give other perspectives as well. Perspectives that you might not agree with. Perspectives that you don't, what they would say, subscribe to. Because once you start to give all those different perspectives, that's how you're eliminating judgment. Now, it's not that judgment is gone. It's that you're able to give all those perspectives and allow that person to see which perspective they want to choose. See which perspective, resonates with them. Because if you are just giving your perspective and how you believe things should be, then no matter what, that's going to be a little judgmental. You have to give multiple ways of doing things. It can't just come from one area, because that limits your sight, that limits your vision. You don't get to see all the different ways that you can do things. You don't get to see the beauty of the world around you. You have to see the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. Now, you don't have to accept it, but you have to be able to see it. And you have to be able to express yourself in a way to where you're not worried about these different perspectives affecting how you go about your life. You take these different perspectives and incorporate them in what you're doing. You take these different perspectives and see what truly resonates with you, what aligns with what you're doing. Because just because you have one perspective, when somebody comes in with another perspective, you don't immediately have to be like, oh, that's wrong. Listen to it. Really take some time to see, is that something that resonates with me or is it not? Because you might get something out of it. You might be like, well, 90% of what they were saying, I do not subscribe to, I do not believe in. But that 10% or even that 1% that aligned with you can be incorporated in how you deal with the world. It can be incorporated in how you approach things. So once you start to incorporate these different perspectives in your original perspective, because it's going to start to change as you're incorporating these things, that's how you start to eliminate judgment. You're not saying that this person, what they're believing and what they feel truly inside is wrong, because everybody's journey is different. We're all walking on that same path, but our journeys are different. Our experiences are different. The way we interact with the world is going to be different. And you have to accept that. You have to accept that everybody is going to have their perspective and their way of traversing through this life. And it's a beautiful thing. It really is. It's a beautiful thing when you start to incorporate these different perspectives, because then you are able to release some of that tension that you have, because you feel you have to be so strict and going one way. And once you start to release that restrictive energy by taking in those different perspectives, whether you accept it or not, you're able to accept them. You don't limit yourself. You don't limit the knowledge that you take in. You don't limit the opportunities that come your way, because that judgmental energy will stop. And I'm not going to say it's going to stop. Let me correct myself. It will hinder the opportunities that come your way. It will veil them. It'll cover them, shroud them in smoke, if you will. Because once you start getting these different perspectives, you'll start to see that there's more going on around you. There's more that maybe you can do. There's more that you can take in. There's more that you're able to accomplish. So when you start to judge somebody for something, because this is just, it's a part of life. When somebody says something that goes totally against your core beliefs, you're going to start judging them for what they're doing. You're going to start judging whether or not they're right and they're wrong. Take a moment to reflect and say, well, hey, it's not that they're right or wrong, you're right, you're wrong, or whatever it is. It's a different perspective. It's a different way of seeing things. It's a different way of doing things. Not necessarily right or wrong. It's just their way. And you might be able to learn something from their way. You might be able to learn something from their perspective. So allow yourself the opportunity to see these perspectives and take them in. Don't let that judgment energy stop you from, or hinder you from accomplishing and becoming, you at your truest and fullest potential. Because you at your fullest potential comes from accepting all these different things and still going through your journey, taking those different ideas and incorporating them in your life. So take that time to reflect on whatever it is. There's no need to immediately say something's right or wrong. Give it some time to reflect on it. Now, you could say that you personally don't agree with that, or you personally don't feel like that is the way to go about things. And that's okay, because it's your personal perspective. It's your personal viewpoint on the world. But you can't just block off all these other things, because then you limit yourself. You limit what you can do. You limit where you could end up being, because that perspective that you thought was totally wrong might be the key that's hindering whatever you are trying to accomplish at that time. It might be that key that unlocks different avenues and different thoughts and different mentalities on what's going on. So don't judge what other people are saying. Just take it as a different perspective. And hey, you just might start finding something out.